Before we start, I just want all of us, all of you to close your eyes just for a minute. Promise it won't take more than a minute. Now imagine this. You're wearing a pair of beautiful red shoes. They're a closed pair of shoes. You know those shoes that are pointed on the top and it has 3 inches of heels. That red shoe is made of leather. You can feel your feet slipping in them. But these shoes, they don't fit. They're very tight on you. Now remember how you feel. Imagining, open your eyes. Your friends, they love these shoes. Whenever you wear them, you receive a lot of compliments. And you being the wonderful you thank everyone and you smile. But can you think of one reason why you're struggling? It is simple because these beautiful pair of shoes don't fit you. No one can see that, but you inside, it doesn't fit you. They're so tight that you can barely walk. They're so tight that they leave you with huge, painful blisters. They're so tight that every night you cry yourself to sleep. They're so tight that they cause you infection in your feet sometimes. Yet you wear them. Why? Because you've been repeatedly told that these are the best pair of shoes for you, and you believe it. You look around and you see your friends and people with similar smiles on their faces, with similar shoes. They seem happy and they're smiling as well. And you start believing that the problem may be with you and not with the shoes. Can you identify with this? Yet you wear them, you know? So you continue and you continue to wear them, you continue to pretend, you continue to fake that smile. We all do. My life, just to give you a perspective, has been like these shoes that never quite fitted properly. I tried to fit myself in them many times, thinking that that was the right pair of shoes for me. When I continued to struggle, over time, I found myself wearing these shoes my way. ऐसा चलो जूते जैसे भी है अपने स्टाइल से पहनूंगी इसे ठीक है I felt like a misfit. At school when I was little, I felt like my humble background came in the way. A lot of people see my life now in London and I travel the world and they think and they tell me, you can live this life because you're very privileged. आपके पास तो सब कुछ है, they say. They don't realize that my beginning was not that. My beginning was very humble. Our personal circumstances were so rough, so tough that, my father was bedridden. My mother had to go to school. There were 3 little siblings that she had to look after. She had to look after the family. I remember days when we didn't have money to even, have food. I remember how it feels to be hungry for days, you know. And reading material was the last thing that we could afford. All the money that we had went towards my father's health. And so I came up with an idea. Even at the age of 6, I was very clever. I thought, kuch karna hai. So what I did is I found this chana wala. You know what chana wala is? The same chana wala that we have. They still exist in India, right? In my days, there used to be little shops and you could go to them. And the chana wala was the best place for information and gossip. Even at 6, I knew ki wahan pe jana hai. So the chana wala make this, you know what puri is? Puri? I'll show you. This is the puri. इतनी बड़ी पूरी होती नहीं थी, but I can never be a chana wala, as you can see. So the chanas were, so he would give me chanas in this puri, and I would take it. I would give the chanas back to him. I said, "आप ले लो इसको कल आऊंगी वापस." And then I would take this piece of paper home, and I would goad my siblings to please teach me to read. That was my material for learning. That's how I learned, and that's how I understood that reading was my uh, it was most precious to me. So things happened, a lot of things happened at that age. My father sadly passed away when I was 6 years old, and I remember when my mother was at work one day, my neighbors, they were again below the poverty line, as we call it, very very poor like us. We didn't have anything. Meet somewhere, they took me to this little shandy little place, and I still remember that place. It was dark inside, it smelled, it had a feeling of something burning all the time. And they would make me sit all day and they would make me work, and they would make me put something on a stick. I had no idea what that was. I would go every day. I would go for hours. My back would hurt, but I would go every day. Do you realize what I was doing when I say stick with something burning on top? I was actually working in a matchbox factory. I had no idea, you know. So I realized this much later in adulthood. And my neighbors threatened me. They said to me, if you tell your mother, then we will hurt you. So, I was so scared. And that shoe, I must tell you, was very painful. At a very young age, when you're forced to lie, you suddenly realize that maybe you hide your truth. Maybe that was my first lesson in hiding a truth, when you felt that something could go wrong in your life. So I hid from fear. I still remember that feeling every night when I went to sleep, that what if my mother got to know? Will I be punished? So I hid, and it is something that has stayed with me forever. And I often think about that. And as a kid, I remember wondering, will I ever get out of this poverty? I had no idea. But my mother was very smart. We come from a very educated family. She made sure that we got education. And that's why, to me, this is why I accepted this invite, because I felt this is what Dr. Modi is doing, providing education to completely change people's lives. And, like my life changed. My mother said something to me very early on when I was a teenager. She said, live your life your way, on your terms. Make your choices as you wish. But she warned me. She said, however, remember, each choice has a consequence. That consequence you have to face, and you have to face it alone. But sometimes you have to face it in a manner that everybody else around you will also have to face the choices of the decisions that you make, like it happened in my case, right? So that's a huge responsibility to carry. So every time I was faced with a decision, I remembered those words. The person I married, for instance, my family would have loved for me to have married a Mangalorean boy, but I decided to marry whoever I wanted to. That was my friend. I married my best friend. Sadly, our marriage didn't work. We were married for a while. It didn't work. We have two children, like you said, twins, a son and a daughter. But we still remain the best of friends. We still have managed our life, and we live our life with maturity. There's a lot of history. Typically, you would hear that when things don't work out, people fight, people say horrible things about each other. But we don't do that. We have huge amount of love and respect for each other. And he is what I call an ally. For those who don't know, an ally is someone who is a friend to you. In the LGBT community that I am, allies are very important. You're all, the fact that we're all sitting here and listening to someone like me speak, you're all my allies. And my ex-husband has become our biggest ally. And to us, that is very, very important. And so my marriage, that shoe fitted me, and yet it did not fit me. And I don't know whether you understand that. When my marriage broke down, my mother got to know that I was interested in exploring my true sexuality. I always, at the back of my mind, felt that I was attracted to women. But in India, social conditioning, I didn't know that there was this option even available to consider. So when my mother got to know, she was really, really angry. The first thing she wanted to do was, wanted to kill me. And I don't know whether you've read my book, but she actually held a knife over my, even now to talk about it is very painful, held a knife over my, over me one night when I was putting my kids to bed. And she said, I'd rather you die than live, because this shock will, cause a lot of scandal for the family. And I understood that problem. I understood that. At least I told myself she's not like the typical Bollywood mother. मैंने कुछ गलत किया होगा, कि ऐसी लड़की को पैदा किया. Bollywood, they show that, or they say, hey भगवान, मुझे अपने पास बुला ले. You know, our parents do this drama. They'll say, they make it all about them. They make it when somebody comes and tells you, when you go and tell your parents something really difficult that you're going through, they make it about them for some reason. I will kill myself. I will do this to myself. Arey, bachcha aaya hai, there's something they're struggling with. Help them. Listen to them. So, but I understood. 20 years ago, being gay was not understood at all. At least now, there is visibility, there is awareness, there are dialogues around. Look at us, we're having this dialogue openly. I can see young people around open to listening to these kind of new narratives, let's say. You see it in films, whether they do it well or not, that's secondary. But at least we get a chance to watch being gay in a film. So people do say horrible things even now, okay? Because we choose this life. I can tell you that. But the information is there. 20 years ago, no one understood this. So when my mother made the choice, that her reaction was very justified. But how else will she react? I mean, she was brought up in a certain conditioning, and she was a conservative woman. And I don't know whether you people have heard that a few days ago, the government of India basically opposed the petition for same-sex marriage on the condition, they said that the marriage is a union between a biological man and a biological woman. And that's how we've been brought up, right? That's what we think. Yeah, this is man, woman, and then they procreate, they have children. Nobody talks about love. They only talk about ye society mein ye zaruri hai. Okay. So my mother reacted because she wanted to protect me. She did not want my children. They were little to suffer from the choices I was making. All I wanted though was for my mother to show me unconditional love. You know, I was so fearful. I was so afraid. I was in New Zealand all alone. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I wanted her to hold me and say, we will be fine. You know, sadly, she was not able to do that. Over time, of course, we made peace with it, and that's okay now. But those were the hardest days of my life. I remember in New Zealand being alone, and even my family had shunned me. And I'm talking about now when I was 32. That's a long time ago. But I've buried this and I've made peace with it. It's important for all of us that when we go through trauma, that we reflect on it, we accept it, and we make peace with it. Because otherwise, it continues to infect us like those shoes that we wear, right? So coming back to my mother ultimately left the choice to me. She said, you do what you have to do. Like, not, she didn't say it so kindly. She said, you do what you have to do. I don't care. It was not pleasant. So I embraced that choice, knowing that it was my truth. I had to be my authentic self, and knowing that it would have consequences. I knew that, nothing comes without consequences. And I also knew those consequences would have an impact on my children, my family, my work, for everything that I would live through, everything from that moment on. I knew my life was going to change. And I was somebody who won lots of awards at my work. I was always given accolades. So I knew everything would be questioned. And suddenly this same talented, skilled person would be looked at from an angle of her sexuality. I knew all that, but I made that choice. You know, Fortunately for me, because I made that choice, my children have been brought up like that as well. They are non-judgmental. When they come to me, I listen to them. I show them unconditional love. I make them feel safe. It doesn't mean that I agree with their choices all the time. But I think it's my responsibility as a parent to first understand what is it they're going through, and then we find solutions together. My children are the ones who actually prompted me to live my truth and live freely. They are as proud of me as I am of them. I must share one little anecdote. My son, who works in a local supermarket here, he's 20, they're 23 now. He said to me, Mama, you and Nicola is my partner of now 14 years. We've been together a long time. He said, you're both famous at my workplace, at my store. And I asked, what do you mean? He said, my workmates, they think you're very cool and that I have two mothers. And I said, oh my God, did you really tell them? Because I still feel fearful. I still feel that it's our private life. We should not talk about it. He said, yes, of course. He said, I'm so proud of you both. And, it made me think. I said, I must have done something right, that I brought up these beautiful, non-judgmental souls, to this world. So I came out. I don't know how many of you understand what the word came out means. It's, when you come out as a gay person, it means that you're revealing your sexual identity to your family, to people close to you, whoever that you wish to share your orientation with. So that's what they say, coming out. And they also say things like, I came out of the closet. And I always say famously, and it's my famous quote that I say, that closets are meant for clothes. They are not meant to hide your truth. So come out. So anyway, so I came out accidentally at the age of 32 for the first time, but I hid in the closet. You know why? Because I was so badly abused by the Indian community in New Zealand. I lived in New Zealand those days. Like, they were so abusive. There are many stories I can share, which I don't want to get into, but mostly I was even kicked physically and I was spat at. Even the broader, wider community in New Zealand was not very kind. There was, homophobia. So passively, actively, sometimes indirectly, things would be said. I would be ridiculed. I would be abused. I felt very unsafe for me and for my children. And later on, when we When I got into a relationship, I had a partner, we thought it's the best thing is to not talk about it. It's best to, the best to, you have to protect your family. It's very important. Of course, things have changed now. So I was being abused for loving someone. I mean, imagine that. You know, how can you be abused for loving someone? Nobody abuses you when you have domestic violence in the house, right? You have dysfunctional families, when you have dysfunctional relationships, you drink, you do horrible things to people around. Nobody abuses, but they abuse you when they think ये तो गलत है, society के against है, culture के against है. If two men or two women are together, खटकता है society को. No, because it is so much against what we have been brought up as. So that is a very hard reality. I realized my shoe that I was wearing, which perfectly fitted me, was actually hurting them, not me. I continued walking my walk. I lived my life exactly how I wished. Traveled the world, I set up my businesses, worked very hard. One of the things that I realized when Dia was talking, that she had intent, she had purpose, but she worked very hard. Nothing comes without hard work. We all know that. All you Shalinis know that. I worked very hard. I looked after my family, did a lot of exciting work, but I thanked God. I used to hate the word lesbian, by the way, because I hate labels. But I thank God for being a lesbian, because I felt if I had not been through this journey, I had not been with a woman, who loved another woman, I would have been a different person. I would have been so called normal. And in our society, normal to me is very dysfunctional, because I know in the guise of normal, I don't know how much goodness and bad we do really, because I have lived that life. And I thank God, thank you for making me who I am. And thank you for giving me the courage, I say to him. And because I made this choice, I'd become so used to getting ridiculed, bullied, like I said earlier. I had constant fear of being spat on. But it taught me one thing, it taught me humility. I never judge anybody. If somebody comes to me with anything, I accept. That is the most important thing, because I think acceptance, we start with acceptance, self acceptance, accepting our families, our friends, whatever that their journey is. That is very important. So I had finally discovered my own pair of shoes that fitted me perfectly. I discarded my old red shoes. Huh? I don't wear them. I don't need to wear them. The log kya kahenge? Constantly I used to hear that, log kya kahenge, log kya kahenge, log kya kahenge. Those days I said I don't want. Lived by कि लोगों को कहने दो, because people love to talk, people love to say things. My one day my children, my partner, and my ex-husband came up to me and they said, चल बस अब बहुत हो गया. Now you're successful, you've lived your life, you have, so I call my life magical life. Now it's time to give it back to the world. I said, go and become a part of the changing narrative. We are with you, we'll look after you. And that's what they said, and I needed that. And that is how eventually at 50, and it's no joke, okay, at 50, to come out and live your truth. I published my book. It's called Untold Lies, Smita, as you said. And of course, the rest is history. The book is being adapted into a feature film by Onir, which I'm very, very grateful for, because I think stories like ours need to be told. I'm constantly invited by various people to share my story, and I try not to give gyan, because that's something I think people need to learn from stories. I have a social media page which is very active called @TotallyOut now. If you ever want to see, I set up little chotu LGBT video in a minute to give people messages, and I just share one of them, like Baba Ramdev. I'm sure a lot of people love him. I love him too sometimes. He came out and said that being gay is a disease. ये तो बीमारी है. He came up with, and I'm sure he wanted to, have a new line of medicine. I don't know, Baba Ramdev's medicine, but he said ये बीमारी है. So I made up a little 1-minute video saying, Baba Ramdev read an article, Baba Ramdev कहते हैं कि ये बीमारी है. So then I call up my office and I'm calling up the HR and say, hello, I can't come into work today. Oh, what happened? Because today I'm feeling gay. So these kind of stories I started making, and that started the career, my advent into the filmmaking. And I have a lot of funny ones if you want to see it, but sharing a social message with in a light manner, because I think that's the best way for people to understand. It took a lot of courage, as I said. At my age and my background, I was very fearful to come out, going through that whole trauma, that whole abuse again. I felt I was exposing myself all over again. Yet something had inside me had decided that I wasn't going to be fearful anymore. There was no wrong in being the person I was. I was not getting drunk, like I said earlier, and beating up people. I was not abusing anyone. I was not violent towards anyone. All I was doing was loving someone. And in fact, in this, I never abandoned my children or even my ex-husband. We created a new way of being. We created a modern family. In fact, Barkha that did a show called We the Women, and she talked about this, that how important it is that sometimes you don't follow the path, you create your own path. And we created this modern family. And so I'd say to बच्चों की तो lottery लग गई. Imagine this, lottery समझते हो, that everything is in abundance. Suddenly they have three parents. Imagine getting love from three parents. So it is about retuning the way you think. It's about when things happen which don't go your way, simply अपना tuning change कर लो. So today I feel really honored that my story continues to light up so many lives. It gives so many courage to make positive changes. Many parents whose children are gay, they come up to me and say, I thank you for showing me that this is possible, that one can have a normal life. मुझे अब तक नहीं पता normal क्या है, but ठीक है, you know, and that it is not an illness, that it is natural. And I don't want to get into religion, but I constantly ये हमारे culture में नहीं है. This is against our religion. But if you read the Vedas and the old mythology, you will see that a lot of gods were gender fluid. There's Kama Sutra, you can talk about. There's Khajuraho temples. So all these things are what we have decided works for us, doesn't work for us. And I said, ठीक है, if love doesn't work for you, respect doesn't work for you, ठीक है, then you live your life the way you want to live. But don't come in my way. I will live my life. And people abuse us. They don't want us because our shoes makes them feel very uncomfortable. So my question to you, Shalini, is what kind of shoes should you be wearing? Shoes that fit you or shoes that other people think should fit you? When you want to live your truth, only truth matters. That is what this whole authentic self makes me so proud that we're talking about it. It is important for your emotional, physical, mental, spiritual well-being to wear comfortable shoes. Any kind of lies, they sit inside you and they cause infection, just like that shoe would cause infection. I wish all of us to live that truth. It really creates magic. I tell you, I have not felt better in my life. I Every day I wake up and I'm the happiest person on earth. Doesn't mean I don't have difficulties, doesn't mean I don't face challenges, but I live my truth. जो भी है वो देखा जाएगा. So today I feel like I'm today when I'm sitting here and listening to all of you, I'm thinking that I'm wearing my dancing shoes. I walk with this spring in my steps. They are not just comfortable, my shoes now, they are magical. And I wish you all those magical dancing shoes. Be you, be authentic. Thank you so much for this opportunity.